Yes, it's working.
Okay. Yeah, I see we're recording. Hi, Binho.
Hello, how have you
So I'm
been?
so glad. Good. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm crazy.
Good. I know it's been nuts. So I'm so glad we're able to get together and touch base and just talk and catch up. A lot has changed, like we were just talking about a few moments ago in the world since the last time we talked. So I definitely I can't just keep you to myself. Like I got to share you with the guests on my channel too.
Yes,
I
that's
feel like I don't know how to respond to that.
yeah.
So first of all, just tell me like how you've been doing and what things is like over in Brazil right now.
Oh, actually, I think the the planet is it's been like kind of crazy
Yeah,
style. Like everything is like whoa, suddenly.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it seems like yesterday was normal, like regular, and right now it's completely crazy. Here in Brazil, it's really messy because uh, politically we are fight like with each other. We have like
okay,
left side and extremely the tight right side, and like we are still fighting politically. I mean,
okay.
so and our president still fighting against the other side between the pandemic times. It's really really crazy. I'm not sure if I could explain exactly what's going on, but I can tell it's really crazy right now. Yeah, the
So
pandemic
it's
is, I mean, the curve is still increasing in Brazil. you know every day we have more cases and more deaths, so it's been really hard to handle, because if you go to the television watching the news, and it's always bad news, you know and you have to try to stand up, and okay, I need to care about my mental health. I need to care about other people, trying to help, but it's not easy, because if you playing the game, you start to like become crazy.
Yep. It's interesting. You said you're not really sure exactly all what's going on. And then you use that terminology, playing the game too. It's hard right now because a lot of people's natural inclination would be to be on social media all the time, reading articles on Google, watching the news, and that's the very thing that brings in that fearful, anxious energy that a lot of people are in right now. A lot of people are very uncomfortable, and as I mentioned before, I work with people in a mental facility or a facility that deals with mental health. And we've just had an upsurge of phone calls, for all kinds of services because people are just trying to find support for all this stuff going on. They may have even already been having some issues, and then all of this just pushed it right over the edge.
Yeah.
So it's just really hard. But it's interesting too, you said far left and far right. We're having the same thing happen, as I'm sure you're aware, here in the US. Um, Everything has become very polarized and politicized. They've even politicized COVID.
Yeah.
So now the virus is political. It's not just let's all work together as a human team to, get better or to, decrease the spread of the virus. It's about politics. So um I in some of my videos I talked about just the different things that are being said in the US
Yeah.
right now about what's happening. I don't know, and I don't ever purport to take one side over the other. I just give information and I just ask people what they think. So
Yeah.
um, go for
Actually,
it.
I
Yeah.
don't care about the which side you are, you know. But the problem, in my opinion, is there are a lot of people lying, you know. There are, and the folks, people in general, they don't want to go like to read some articles or, you know, for the right information. They just
Mm.
get information at the television or even WhatsApp, or, you know, like I can explain, but the problem is there's a lot of people lying for both sides. That's
Yeah.
the right, and
Yeah.
people still like believing in those people. Like, oh, okay, you know, but
Yeah.
they don't want to go for the right information because you have to take some time, you know, for research, for reading. And I think that's why people are so polarized right now, because it kind of one phrase of lie and you start to share for other friends, you know, like, ah, okay,
Hmm.
that's the, but
Yeah. That's right. I think it's like the telephone game right now,
yeah,
where one person tells one person one thing and then they spread it and they spread it. And this is definitely a common way that people tend to communicate, but in a situation like you're saying that's so serious, where we have so many high numbers of people becoming sick, and to be honest with you, at the start of the whole thing, I kind of was like, well, maybe the models are off with what the projections are going to be or whatever. But in talking with people I knew who actually lost loved ones to COVID recently, I was
well,
like, oh, okay. So there's definitely, we can't say that there's nothing going on. So I think that's an extreme to say there's definitely something going on. Am I clear on all of the details and how it affects our health with regard to just the normal viruses we would have
yeah,
versus the way the body's affected when it's COVID is introduced? I have no idea. I'm not a doctor, but I can say that I have been definitely trying to spread the energy and the knowledge of, hey, in any situation when you have a viral scenario moving around like the flu, which takes thousands of lives every year,
yeah,
um, we have to do certain things to be proactive. And I think those are things we should have been doing all along. And now here we have something that is newly introduced into our environment. Possibly our bodies are not adjusted to it, possibly. And so it's having a really adverse effect on people's health. Same thing with any virus. There are certain things you can do to help build your body up. Um, Me personally, supplementation, what I eat, my diet, drinking plenty of water, getting plenty of rest, sanitizing surfaces and things like that. And also your mindset helps too. If you're already in a kind of a drained emotional
yeah,
energy and mindset, it's going to be harder to be able to, bolster your body up when it's got to fight against something or to resist or to strengthen itself against something.
yeah,
So it is interesting. I don't know all of the details. There's so, we can get into it a little bit. There's so many different thoughts on what's going on, like that range from, what people would consider conspiracy theories. And this gets
yeah,
into the far left, far right situation. We have that going on right now with our current president here in the US. Um, I can't say his name. Of course, my video will probably get removed. But, we have thoughts about conspiracies with the far right and things that have to do with people on the far left. Basically, even as far as like the virus actually being something that is, I guess, just in place to affect people who are of a certain group or whatever. to get them off the scene so that way another group can take over and run things. I'm just being kind of vague so that way I don't use too many specifics and get my video removed. Or things that have to do with certain, I guess, affiliations with what's the name of that? Those people that they believe that the president is involved with, that sends the coding and the messages or whatever, and it has to do with, you know what I'm talking about. It has to do with far right thought process, removal of people on the far left. And people that they feel are not patriots or whatever. There's so much going on.
Oh my!
And I'm going, I mean, the U.S. is a freaking mess right now. And
War. Kind of. It's a war. It's a new war. You know.
It is a war.
I think
it is.
I would say we are living now the war information. I think we had the first war and the second war, and now I think is the information war, because like we're talking about lines and theory, conspirations, and everything's going on at the same time, and sometimes I don't know which side look at, you know what I mean? Yeah, and
I do.
The big problem is, I mean, I'm a musician, I'm an artist, so I have to fight. I have to try to get fight with in my field, my area. I mean, that's the field that I really know how does it work, But I cannot discuss about economics, for example, or I live for, my wife is PhD pharmacist, so she really knows, not really know, but she knows a lot about health, about the industry, about the, I cannot speak with my friends like, oh, there's something wrong with the industry, because I really don't know. I guess, I have my guesses, but I'm not an economic, or I'm not a doctor, like there's some areas, some fields. I'm an artist, so I'm still, I've been fighting for the goodies for the artist.
That's right.
Because in my field I know how it works, but and right
not
now,
with this other stuff.
especially in Brazil and in the US, probably people are arguing with each other or discussing with each other for different areas, but they really don't know how it works. I prefer, like, okay, I'm live for people who knows, because there's a lot of things for like talk about. I have
it can. You're right. It can get just very opinionated and polarized with no fact, no science, no logic. It's just people's thoughts. Just by the way, QAnon was the term I was trying to remember. I couldn't think of it. Yeah. So this is a very good point you make about being an artist, and I'm an artist as well too. So I hear what you're saying. It's like, I can speak to things that have to do with my art or my industry with regard to my art, but some of these other things, I can talk about it. I definitely have the way that I feel about some of the things I'm seeing. We're going to touch a little bit on the race issues in the United States as well here in a second. But as far as the viral things go, I'm still saying what I've been saying for years, which has to do with bolstering your mind, body, and spirit, regardless of what's happening in your quote unquote physical environment. And I've made this statement before too, that there's ways to transcend your physical environment by being connected on a spirit level with your higher self. There's ways to help your physical body to deal with what it's experiencing by that connection. So there is something to be said about, having a healthy spiritual connection with your higher self, having a healthy diet, and, putting some practices in place that will help you to be able to cope better regardless of what's happening. And
Yeah,
I just think that now is a good time to get into a practice like that, no matter what you were doing before, because you can start the process of understanding that you have the choice to heal your body.
that's the point.
And I know for some people it probably sounds like woo woo, but the reality is the mind and the processes that happen here are much more powerful with regard to the body. The body is not the one controlling things, it's the spirit and the mind.
Yeah,
So once we have that understanding, we can begin to work on the healing process with our body. But it's getting to a place where you believe that as well too. I mean, your beliefs play a big role as to what you can and cannot do, which is really false. There is no can and cannot. You can do whatever you need to do. You have to believe it though. You have to understand it and you have to
yeah.
know it. That's hard. That's not easy.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's hard.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
I think like there's something different because we have like quarantine, and I mean we don't have lockdown here in Brazil. I mean we didn't stop like stuck it at home. People still working. Not everybody, but like a lot of area like business still working in Brazil. But it's time to stop and think about your choice. Like you said, the healthy, the food, you know, like practice some exercise because it's kind of we need to get the harmony with your mind and your body and your soul. Uh, as an artist, I can feel like uh, when I play at the stage, I mean playing live with a band or some friends, the stage has something different. I mean some different energy. And if
mm,
I'm not connected by that energy, I couldn't play well. You know what I mean? I know which
yes.
chords I have to play, but it's not about
Yes.
all the just
Yes.
chords. There's
Yes.
something different, and each show is different. When I have record sessions at the studio, it's the same process. I need to connect with myself and then connect with the environment and try to get some atmosphere, some energy. You know, yeah. And
Yes.
right now, I just look at my whole uh, home. When I go for cooking, why not stop, breathe, and connect with myself and doing like be present when you're
Mm,
doing something. I think people it's been living for a long time like, oh, I need to work and work and work and take some money and pay the bills. you know and it's a loop. And right now we need to stop and just think about like, okay, I can reconnect with myself and change my choice.
yes.
Much
You're
better.
right. I agree with you. It's a wake up call.
Yeah.
And for some people, it it was like a wake up call for a little bit. Now they're ready to just get back to the way things were before. But the issue is that I do believe, and I think a lot of people agree with me, that it's never going back to the way it was before. I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
I
me
see a shift and a change. How about you?
me either. Yeah, because I think I can see, like, I can feel people in general that was kind of blind about the lifestyle, and right now they are waking up like, oh, okay, because
Yes.
we were forced by, okay, we have to stop right now. And there's a lot of thing, a lot of different things going on at the same time. Like we have a disease, but we have like our jobs. I had all my shows canceled. You know,
Wow.
I don't know when I will be back at the stage.
Wow.
I suppose this year is gone. You know, maybe next year, but and that's why people start to be like feel crazy because you have a lot of bills to pay.
Hmm.
I mean, the life is still running, but you stop your job, you stop your relation with other people. I mean, with your friends, you know,
Hmm.
you're not able to go in for a bar, maybe for drinking something, and
Right.
it's hard because your mind's still working, but at home, you know, your
Yeah.
energy it's accumulating, you know. Imagine
Right.
normally I was walking around and going for a different place, and suddenly we just stay at home day by day, and your energy and your mind is still like thinking a lot of things and working and working, and people start like, whoa, I need to do something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it can drive you bonkers. I mean, I personally worked throughout the whole time period, starting back early March when things went into lockdown here in Michigan in the US. And we went into a very hard lockdown. It started out moderately hard and went into a very hard lockdown. I mean, it was on the level with like California. It was like that.
Wow.
And so everything was closed. And I was just trying to figure out, how am I gonna get the things I need? If people were concerned about haircuts and stuff, I'm a cosmetologist. I'm a licensed stylist, have been for over 20 years, so I wasn't worried about that. Or my nails, I just did my own. But it was really just grocery shopping was a pain in the butt. Because everything was curbside with food. Just everything else is closed. Beauty supply, everything closed. Liquor stores are still open. They were considered essential. Um, my job was essential, so I was still there working, but it was different. It was
Yeah.
different. And, it just occurred to me. I was like, well, it may not go back to where it was before. I started, growing food at my home and just starting to get into a mindset where I was connecting more with life without all of these extra things that I had grown accustomed to and that I
Yeah.
was so comfortable with. I was like, okay, let me learn how to release those things and let those things go. So if they come back, that's great. But if they don't, it's okay. And I think a lot of people had a rough time with that. I think the idea of letting those things go scares them.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, actually, we had kind of lockdown, lockdown the first 2 or 3 weeks in March, early March here, because like the first cases in Brazil, like of COVID, and our government, like, okay, we have to start everything. But after 3 weeks, I think people start to ask for going back to work because
Wow.
the government doesn't have money to to
Oh,
support you at home. You know what I mean?
okay.
If you
So there
don't,
was no stimulus for Brazil?
no, I mean, if you don't work,
God.
you, you can't get some money. You know, the government start. They are trying to support folks, but it's a very, very low amount of money. It's like it's something like $200 monthly
Wow.
for some people. You know, it's too low, and
Wow.
we, I don't know. I think that there's a phrase in in English, it's we are between a rock and a hard place, something like that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
here in Brazil,
Wow.
we are living something like this situation. That's why we can't stop or we can't do a hard lockdown because people at home without money are people sick, you know.
Wow. And that's actually $200 a month. That's like between a rock and a rock.
Yeah,
That's worse. That's really bad.
yeah,
And so this just goes to bring out the point that even with trying to handle controlling the spread of the virus, it can't be ignored, this issue of people needing to have what they need to take care of their families and to put food on the table. And did your government do anything about making it so that way people could not be evicted from their homes if they were not able to work?
no, no, yeah.
Oh, oh
And
boy.
the big problem is we didn't test everything or most part of the people in Brazil. We didn't have tests for uh, like to know exactly what's going on. I mean, the number of people with the virus. They were like, oh, people with some symptoms just go to the hospital and take some medicine and go home, but they weren't uh, sure if those people were with the virus.
Oh, so they didn't do testing on them?
Yeah, it's a little. How can I say? It's kind of 40% of the population was having tests, but and now it's getting better. But for the first months, I think the first 2 months, Brazil wasn't doing well against the
Okay.
COVID, you know,
Okay.
and that's why people, because there are some people that doesn't have symptoms and still going to work or walking around and spread the
Mm.
virus.
Mm.
And suddenly
So you guys didn't have quarantine, like 14-day quarantine for
yeah,
people who are suspected?
we had, but people doesn't respect. We are
Okay.
in Brazil.
They're like, I'm going to the beach. It's
Yeah,
sunny.
it's like a carnival. Okay.
Yeah. They didn't do a ton of respecting it here. They may have done a little better, but really it was the authorities, the government authorities and the state authorities that had to shut everything down so that there was nothing to do. If they had left everything open, people would have still been at the movies and everything. It would have nothing would have stopped. I think it's just simply because they shut everything down.
Yeah.
And then they gave people a stimulus here. So if you were getting unemployment, you got an extra, $600 or whatever to help you pay for costs. And now that that stimulus is over, they're talking about doing a second stimulus, but there's a lot of infighting politically about it because there are things that people are trying to put into the bill that the one side doesn't like. And so they're fighting, doing like a House, bipartisan stimulus. So it's supposed to be coming, but it might be different who's eligible for it this time. The cap for income might be quite a bit lower, or it could be something that's for businesses to help them to bring their employees back, because there was concern here about people wanting to just basically stay on unemployment, because the reality is people made more money on unemployment here than they did on their jobs.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it. I mean, if you hate your job and you get to stay home and make more, I could see why you wouldn't want to go back to work. I'm not mad at that. But I think that because of that, they're looking at whether they were going to do as big of a stimulus or as big as, like, an extra payment onto the unemployment. So that stuff wraps up here this month, I believe, in July, and they're making a decision what they're going to do about the second stimulus.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting. I'm just watching things and talking with people and asking them, what their experience is. So that's very interesting to hear what's going on in Brazil. Now let's talk a little bit about, what's going on globally, really, with the movement with regard to racial injustice and equal rights for
Yeah.
everybody. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, I'm not trying to shade it. I'm just saying I feel like it's going to take a lot more than, people marching and things like that for, our current presidential cabinet does not believe there's such a thing as uh, how did they word that? They said people were asking them about um, discrimination that just happens
Mhm.
inside of just the way things work in this country. I can't think of any terms today. You'll have to excuse me. I'm so tired.
Right.
But basically, that there's no such thing as, just overt discrimination built into the
Yeah.
system. And that's what they're saying. So, I don't know with people who think like that, how we'll get past that. I mean, we'll have to see. But what's going on in Brazil with regard to what's happening, globally right now with that topic of racial
Yeah,
injustice?
there's a lot of people. There's some groups in Brazil that start to fighting against the like fighting for the rights or the balances. You know,
Hmm.
in the U.S., you guys have the
Black Lives Matter.
yeah, and we start to fighting with the same in Brazil at the same time. You know, like we were asking for like the equal rights, and we were using like the Black Lives Matter hashtags and going to the street. You know, it was really beautiful. Unfortunately, we are in 2020 and we need to talk about it. But it's
Yep.
beautiful because people, doesn't matter if it's black or white, we were at the street, you know,
Hmm.
and like doing together. I, I, I'm not sure if it happened in the past, like because I know the black people it's been fighting, but at this time I saw a lot of people fighting for the same thing, you know,
Hmm.
and I was like trying to look at the positive way, like okay, it's time to fight and it's time to go to the street and stop with some like shit things because
Hmm.
you know. And in Brazil we have like almost 50% of the Brazilian guys are the poor are poor people, you know.
Okay.
The Brazil we have like 1% of the very very rich people. They have a lot of lands and the majority of the things in Brazil, and the other ones is very poor and they don't have nothing, you know. And I think they are we are waking up for that, you know.
Hmm.
We can't stand like okay, it's okay. No, we've been living with how can I say, uh, we can see that, you know. You go on the street and you see a lot of people living at the street, and for me it's enough. I mean, okay, why I can't go home, have a shower, and eat something, and the other one, it, like, why I can and the other one no,
Yeah.
not enough for me, and I've seen in Brazil a lot of people start to look at this,
Mm,
like, okay,
okay.
it's growing, the movement is growing, and
Now, in Brazil, is there an issue? And that's really good that people are starting to become aware of that, by the way, Binho. I'm really happy to hear that. Is there an issue in Brazil like it is here with like, you know, a thing that has to do with certain ideologies and concepts that have to do with race or skin tone,
yeah,
lighter skinned people versus darker skinned people,
yeah,
and the predicament that a lot of cases darker skinned people are put into versus, what we have here in the US where it can be common for a corporation, a company, or whatever to hire more people who are Caucasian or white versus, minority. Is that the situation in Brazil as well too, or is it a little
yeah,
different there?
yeah, 10 times more. Yeah,
Oh gosh. Oh.
yeah, because yeah, Brazil, we had almost 200 years for with slaves, people
That's true.
from
Yeah.
Africa, but those slaves, they don't know like how to write, how to speak well, and then they got free, they still living as slaves because like, okay,
Hmm.
they weren't prepared, and they start to working as like very low kind of job, like I don't know the name in English, but people still like, they were they were poor and with no information, and this is
Got
still
it.
like for more 100 years, and right now, because why they were slaves, the white people were getting rich for almost 200 years, and then, okay, they're free, but we don't have the balance. People still rich and still like looking at them like, okay, giving like the shit jobs and
Mm-hmm.
treat them like shit,
Mm.
you know that's the
It just
way.
goes to show you it can start with physical enslavement,
Yeah,
but then it ends here, generation after generation after
yes,
generation of people being dealt with in a certain way and becoming accustomed to it
yeah,
creates a certain thought process about themselves, and then they're in this situation. And you're right, it is time for us humanity globally to start
yeah,
having these discussions about this.
yeah, because you know what, the worst thing is, because the rich people is still thinking like your employees are
Mhm.
slaves,
Mhm.
even with white people. I mean, in Brazil, we have a concept like, okay, if I own a store or a company, my employees are like just employees. They don't need to have rights, human rights.
Wow.
It's a
Wow.
concept. Like rich people in Brazil, they don't care about, you know.
So it sounds like the situation's even a little more exaggerated in Brazil. I mean, here we definitely have um what we have here in the US, we have certain mentalities, and then we also have certain situations that people who would be considered minorities a lot of times are assisted to stay inside of. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah,
So certain communities, certain jobs, certain situations, and they may find it harder to break out of those situations than somebody who doesn't look like them.
yeah.
Um,
I think it's a
So
very heritage, you know, like because at
yeah.
the time they used to think like, okay, the slave is made for serve me, is made for working
Mhm.
for me, and I think the laws and everything was built for that, right? Like they built the laws for that concept, and
Yeah,
we are in 2020, but the laws still in this same
that's
concept,
right.
you know, like
That's right.
people needs to work a lot of hours every day, and the minimum wage in Brazil it's shit. I think it's
Okay.
almost the same, you know.
It probably is. Minimum wage in the US has dropped. I mean, no, I'm sorry. It went up, but it's still garbage. It's hot garbage. You can't live off of that. The price of, let's say it dropped because the price of living went up and the minimum wage is still so low. There's such a gap. You would
Yeah.
have to get multiple jobs
In
to
Brazil,
even try.
it's worse, completely worse. You know.
Horrible.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
yeah. The minimum wage in Brazil, it's our money, our current money is real.
Mm-hmm. Rio?
Yeah, the minimum wage is 1,000 reals in Brazil.
Okay.
But normally, apartment, if you have to live or pay the how's the name is monthly, you know, the rent.
Yeah.
Sometimes I forget some word.
It's okay.
Normally in Brazil, the rent is around 1,200 or sometimes 2,000, and the minimum wage is just 1,000 reals. And a plate of food in
How
Brazil
can you
is kind of
live?
25 or 30 reais. A plate of food, I mean, if you go to the restaurant, you
Wow.
have to pay something like that. But the minimum wage is really, really cheap. In the US,
You can't even live.
no, absolutely. Yeah. In the US, I
How
remember,
do people do it?
yeah, with my income in the US last year was really, really low. But I remember you can like, you can eat something, even if it's really basic. I mean,
Hmm.
and you can buy a sandwich or and a coffee for maybe $6 or
Hmm.
$10 maybe.
That's right.
In
Hmm.
Brazil, it's kind of 20,
Oh,
$25.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow. That's a mess. And then, so it's really not a shock to me to see, regardless of, because there's a lot of discussion here in the US, once again, more of the polarizing and politicizing of who is behind the movement. So far right believes that the left is trying to destabilize the
yeah,
US with the Black Lives Matter movement and the riots and things like that. And then the far left is saying, no, that's just conspiracy from the right because they want to continue to have things run the way it does, which sucks.
yeah,
So basically, while they're arguing over that, the point being is, regardless of who's at the helm of the movement, the reason why the movement, I believe, seeded so strongly is because there is such a deep history, a colonial deep history here in this country with
yeah,
regard to these issues that have to do with slavery and race. And even after the Jubilee, even after the slaves were set free, even after all of that and people were able to vote and all that, there has still been an ongoing struggle for Blacks and minorities to be viewed as equals to their white counterparts in this country. And it continues to happen until this day. And what's happened with the Gen Xers, which is my group, and the millennials, which is my kids group, they're of a different mindset than the baby boomers and their predecessors. So they're like, what's the big deal? So I think I see a lot of millennials and Gen Xers marching.
Yeah.
And I think it's because people, there's honestly, I see even sometimes more white people in the street than I do black. And I even had one friend I spoke with, and she's actually Jewish, but she made the statement to me, I started up a book club for people to read books and begin to understand what the issues are. She said it's a shame that we've had to have our black friends for all these years try to teach us these things and lead the way, and nobody even listened or got it. She said, you guys shouldn't have to even do it anymore. And I just thought, wow, this is so profound. I can just sit back
Yeah.
and see these things happening. And actually, it puts a smile on my face. I don't like to see people's businesses being destroyed and people getting hurt. I don't like to see that. But I
Yeah.
am happy to see that there is a great awareness of this issue, and that people want to get involved with bringing light onto the issue of racial injustice in the US and globally, because these things are happening all over the planet, not just in the US. That's powerful.
Yeah, people needs to realize that for arguing about the racism, we need to
Hmm.
look at the laws. We need to look
Hmm.
at the concepts. There's no only one thing to discuss, because it's like I said, it's a heritage. I know people like sometimes act as a racist, but they really don't know. They can't see like it's not for like okay, I'm going to be a racist. No, they don't know. They don't see. They can't see, because there's a lot of regular things when you're living in a big country as Brazil, such as Brazil or the US. And like everything was built for with this concept. I mean, you, but at the same time, like we are only one race, human. You know, we don't have to argue for races or colors or whatever or political sides, because we need to just to look for like how can we improve our
There
lifestyle,
it is.
planet.
Yes.
But the problem is
Yes,
money,
yes, yes.
money is the problem.
Yes. Money is the problem. And the ironic thing about it is that
Yeah,
money, as we tend to generally look at it, is not even real. Because in most cases there's nothing even backing the money these days. It's just a bunch of debt between a bunch of nations.
yeah.
And it is true that, go ahead.
I'm not against the money,
I'm not against it either.
but
Nope.
I'm against the 1 or 2% of the planet holding a lot of money.
There it
You
is.
know,
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you. Like a more even distribution. Or
yeah,
here's a novel idea. How about just set things up where people can just have the basic necessities that they need
yeah,
without having to have money for it? Then freaking do that. There's something that can be done about that. But this gets into the ideology of capitalism and corporations
yeah,
versus having a setup that works more globally for
yes,
everybody.
yeah,
This is
because
what it gets into.
yeah, because like doesn't make sense. I have to pay a lot of taxes, and
Hmm.
the huge companies, they don't pay the same percentage. I mean, like
Yeah.
I think the fair way for that would be like, okay, the poor people are, you have to pay some taxes, but once you going growing and doing well with your business, you have to pay more taxes. So and
Right.
distributing for other people, because
Right.
if I have a huge company and I like earning millions of dollars monthly, I have to pay more tax because I'm
Right.
using. more, you know. And
Right.
I think, and here in Brazil is completely the, I mean, how can I say it? People, the great companies in Brazil pay less taxes than the poor people, you know, because it's kind of 45% of everything you pay taxes. I mean,
Wow.
you know what I mean? Like, okay,
Yeah.
it's about 45%, but for a poor people, 45% of the income, it's a lot. But for
Is
a
yeah.
huge company, it's
Not.
nothing.
Well, I remember when I had my business in Pittsfield Township here in Michigan, they started up a tax, which I was like, this is illegal. How can you even do this? They started charging you tax on the items in your business that you already purchased and paid taxes on when you purchased the items. They tax them every year again. I'd never even heard
Oh,
of anything like that. Maybe I'm just out of the loop, but I thought it was amazingly horrible. And I said, how can this even be? I remember when they started really pushing on it, instituting it.
my God.
People were calling up to Pittsfield Township and cussing them out because they didn't want to pay it. But if you wouldn't declare what was in your business, they would take a guesstimate and then charge you taxes on items that you had already purchased.
Yeah,
And I'm going, this is, you know, this is out of hand. You know, here a lot of people would like for the IRS to just be abolished,
yeah,
um, just bye bye, because they're usually used as something to after your loved one passes away, they swoop in and take everything so that way it can't be passed down to the family, or taxation purposes. It's sad. But the point being is definitely, I think in 2020, our attention is being drawn to the world that we live in, the way that it's set up, and that it's not functioning well. It's not working. And we have a lot of people who are on the fringe
yeah,
due to the way that things is set up. And, you know, they're not just on the fringe, they're in danger. You know, they're homeless. They're not able to feed their families. We have seniors that have to choose between a meal and medication. We have social and racial injustice. And then we have certain political entities that say things that inflame the
yeah.
situation.
They
Some
need,
serious problems.
yeah, because actually we don't have even the basic, you know.
Yeah.
And in Brazil, it's crazy because uh, the I mean the huge companies, their owner, they used to make lobbies with the politicians for not paying or not declare for paying
Hmm.
taxes. But we are small. I mean, I'm small, and I couldn't make love with politicians. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
able for because I don't know them, but that big people, they are besides the politicians. They are together, and they could like manipulate everything and even the laws, and
Yeah.
doesn't pay anything. I wouldn't say anything, but they don't pay a lot.
I
But
can believe that.
you know, like if you have a small business, you couldn't skip that part. You have to
Yeah.
pay. You know.
Yeah. Or you'd have to have a really damn good attorney that you got a lot of money to pay to
Yeah.
get you out of it. Um, because, you know, issue here, I believe that taxation is actually constitutionally illegal. However, what you'll get is, well, it is the laws of the land. So you would have to have an attorney, which would be a person typically who's very wealthy or rich, to get out of paying taxes. And they do. It's not commonly talked about, but you know they do. So if you're a common person and you try to say, well, I know my rights, it's unconstitutional, they'd be like, pay your taxes or go to jail.
Wow.
How about that for your constitution? They don't really care.
Yeah.
Your rights, you have your rights as long as they allow you to have them. And then when you don't have them anymore because they took them from you, they're like, too bad.
Yeah. Oh.
Welcome to the US. So here's a question. I'm just curious. Two questions, actually. So, question one, what are people in Brazil saying about the Trump administration? And question two, did you know that Kanye West has stated that he's running for president?
Okay, let's start with question two. I got surprised.
Your face.
Okay. And how about you about the Kanye West? Like,
Oh, how do
nice
I feel
guy.
about that?
I know him as an artist, but personally, he looks a nice guy, but I don't know.
Kanye West actually said that he is not going to be running for any of the parties that are normally running on the ticket, which would be like he's not an independent, he's not a Republican, he's not a Democrat. And then there's another one. I'm not a political person, you'll have to excuse me. He said the name of his party is going to be called the Birthday Party. And I'm not making this up. And when asked why the birthday party, he said, because when I win and I'm president, it's going to be like it's everybody's birthday.
Wow.
I swear to God. So
I'm really
if
surprised.
you want to know what I think, I mean, I was like, wow, he sounds like an idiot. But even with that, I bet you it'd be fun. You know, I mean, what the hell? Everything we've had going on, whatever, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know about a Kardashian for the first lady. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just thought it was hilarious. I think it's a distraction. He said he's no longer supporting Trump. Remember how he would wear the red Magna hat in
Yeah.
support of Trump? He said he's no longer supporting him. He said he's going to be a candidate that is not for vaccinations and not for birth control, not for abortions, vaccinations. So he still sounds kind of like far right. But he when they asked him about his policies on, you know, dealing with other countries and everything, he said, oh, I haven't developed that yet. You know, I want to
Yeah, that's crazy.
focus on that. I'm like, what? He has not actually. It's crazy. Yeah. So tell me, what do you think about that? I didn't know you didn't know about that because it's been all over. Like,
I think anyone knows about Kanye West for president here in Brazil.
and by the way, when I say he sounded like an idiot, I was referring to his political party being the birthday party. Like, it sounds like a joke. Sounds idiotic. I'm not saying he's an idiot, but he sounded like one. But that being said, other than that, I love Kanye's music and I love his clothing designs. But, you know, please continue.
Yeah, that's great. You know, actually, I don't trust the people from far right and even from far left. Actually, I don't trust for fars, you know, like far right or far
this or far that.
I
Yeah.
prefer the middle, even for like middle right or middle left, you know, because there are people who are like more flexible or they're able to look at both sides, because when you go for just one side, you couldn't talk with the other side, and that's the problem.
That's right.
So I'm not sure. I don't know about the Kanye West or the other president in the future, but I prefer like I wish you guys could have like a really nice guy that could be look at both sides and You know,
You
like,
should run for president.
what?
You're a really nice guy. I said, you should run for president. You're
No,
a really nice guy who would look at both sides.
yeah, well, I'm not prepared. I don't know about it. So,
You don't have your policies set up yet? Okay. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, I
So
prefer.
what are they saying in Brazil about our current president? What do you hear people saying?
It's really split. I mean, because our president in Brazil, it's very similar with Donald Trump. They
Oh,
are very
okay.
aligned. The ideas, the concepts,
Interesting.
they run the same movement. You know, like Steve Bannon, that guy started the movement. You know about that? It's called the movement. It's a far right
Yeah.
movement started
Yeah.
by Steve Bannon, and this
Mhm.
guy helped Trump to get the president, and the same guy helped the Bolsonaro family here in Brazil because I think
Oh.
he has a concept. He has like a thought about how the planet would be running, and this guy, uh, how can I say, help these politicians. And Italy is the same concept. You know, like there's some countries with the same concept, and here in Brazil we have like a half of Brazilian, they are with the Bolsonaro, and the other half they are completely against. You
It's the
know,
same. Wow.
exactly the same. You know what? The same lies told in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
are told here. Like when I
Wow.
see some news from the U.S., I can wait for 2 or 3 days, and our president start to talk about the same thing. You know, like the
That's
economy,
amazing.
or you know, like all the communism and everything is communism. Everything is like they have a plan to. It's the same thing. It's almost the same.
Wow.
So about the Trump, the people in Brazil that are aligned with the Bolsonaro concept, they think like, oh, Trump is doing great. And the other half of Brazilians, they think, oh, Trump is a disaster. You know?
Wow. So it's kind of polarized, kind of like just split over there, just like what's happening in the US
Yeah.
here. Wow.
I
So
think
what do you think about the election coming up, Binho? Do you think it will be a situation where Trump is back in office again, or do you think it will be um,
I don't think so.
Biden?
I don't think so because I don't know what's going on right now in the U.S. But the last year I was living in the U.S. and during this year I could see a lot of people changing their minds. I mean, they were thinking about like, oh, I voted in Trump, but there's something wrong because the way he acts, it's really weird, you know.
It is. It's the word for it. It's really weird.
Because you know what I mean, like when
Yeah, I do.
during the campaign, they even Bolsonaro here and Donald Trump there, they were talking about changes. I mean, oh, I want to stop the violence. I want to stop the messy. Everything was like, okay, this is a really beautiful word, and people just believe like, okay, I trust in this guy,
Mhm.
but they got the power, and start to act
Yeah.
as a child. You
Mm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
playing with people,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and people start to realize, okay, there's something wrong. You know,
There's something wrong. What do you think about the situation we have here with the police? There's been a lot of talk about defunding the police or even getting rid of the police due to some of the issues with violence. and police, I guess, overutilizing restraint or overutilizing violence to de-escalate violence, like, shooting and things like that. So what do you think about that discussion, that there is a percentage of Americans that want to defund or get rid of the police?
We have the same problem in Brazil. Normally, the police in Brazil, they are so aggressive, no patience, and
Hmm.
because I believe, I think that kind of institution, I mean, the police guys, they are trained for the combat.
Hmm.
And we have been talking about mindset, like for everything, mindset for changing your life, and mindset to for concentrate better and study.
Hmm.
You can train your mind, and those guys actually, they are trained just or only for the combat. But I believe that if you train something, okay, if you need go to combat, you're prepared. But first of all, you have to hold some love with you. You know,
Hmm.
I think that's the problem. Even for the military, it's almost like the policies that they are, because they don't know who is the other person. Like you
Yeah.
have to. I'm agree, like the as a policeman you have to be prepared for everything,
Yeah.
for any situation. But they are not trained for first start to share
Mm-hmm.
some love, you know
Yeah,
they're
I
trained
hear
on
you. That.
always like, oh, okay, it's a hard situation. It's any situation is it's a hard situation. you know they are not trained for asking first or trying to.
Yeah,
you know
de-escalation.
yes.
They're not trained for de-escalation, and that's what I think we've seen time and time again with these situations that just go way too far too quickly.
Yeah.
Is they're being escalated instead of de-escalating. I mean, I personally think getting rid of the police altogether is a bad idea, because if somebody breaks in your house, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying, or somebody is threatening your life, who are you going to call? So I think that we do need them. I think that there needs to be more training on how to handle different situations. Like you said, the training is primarily just combat, and it actually is a very quick training. You can get in and out of academy pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's just enough time to teach you those basics. I think they need more continued education. And I think that they need to add to the force people who are specifically there for de-escalation, like social workers and people for non-violent situations,
Yeah.
where an officer can accompany them and they can start the conversation. And
Exactly.
they're an officer too, but they're more like a peace officer. They're there to
Yeah.
de-escalate. And then if it gets violent, there's somebody that's there to assist.
Exactly.
But I think going at the whole thing from a different vantage point and understanding that we don't have to do things the way that we've always done it. We could look at it differently and change the way we do things and have a successful result. I think the problem is people believe it's like either this or that. Either we have the cops and they're screwing up, or we don't have them at all. And it's like, well, wait a minute. What about this gray area in between? What can we do to help them to be able to do their job better? And
Yeah.
I definitely think that there needs to be a lessening of the immunity for officers, meaning the
Yeah.
laws that protect them from being taken to court or to jail when they overstep the laws, that needs to be dealt with. Because for an officer, let's say, has a record of overstepping those lines constantly, they feel protected to do it. I think if you get rid of that, those officers will leave the force because they don't want to do the job without those protections. And then we have more room to train officers with the right kind of mindset and the ability to be able to learn how to de-escalate, get rid of the bad ones, and bring in some more new ones. But right now, everybody's just kind of angry and they're just kind of focused on, you know, keep them or get rid of them. And it's just like,
That's so sad.
so it is sad. It is sad. It's not, you can't use the term everyone to any group of people. There are some people who aren't doing a good job as an officer, and there are
Sure.
some people who are. And, you know, we have some people in our family that are police officers, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. I have no idea whether the one that is in our family is good or not. I don't know. But point being is that I think that if you help train people to have new ways to look at things, it can
Yeah.
help expand their thought process and it can change the way the situation works.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah. So
I
this is very interesting.
no, no,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe in the future people could be able to ask about this kind of concept, you know, because
Hmm.
in my opinion, if you go to the street for fighting or for asking for justice, but if you don't have a plan or if you don't have something to ask, I mean, like I said, why it's only one way. I mean, this is my thought. Maybe it doesn't work, but people need first trying to create some argument and then go to the street or go uh, asking the politicians and try to find a way or the best way for that, because I've seen a lot of people fighting, and as a maybe the policemen, that those guys, they are at the street and they are seeing people just fighting against them, but the people are not asking for something better. You know, you know what I mean? They are doing violence at the same time because they are like breaking stores
Right.
or, you know, like window stores, and they are like doing some messy at the street. But I'm sure if these people start to asking for more love or some more like, okay, being polite or asking for a better trainment for those guys, and those guys would feel like, okay, they are with us. They want
Yeah.
something better for the police.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was saying like, oh, we are living the information war, because there's just two points, like the police point, like, oh, we don't know the other guy, we have to be aggressive, and the other
Mm-hmm.
side, the people like, okay, we are like always, you know, like uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
we have to get together, like, okay, as a person or as you know, like as a folk, what we need to do for the policemen work in better conditions and be better prepared for hard situations. But
I agree.
it's not happening. They still fighting against, and they have to fight together, you know.
That's right.
It's against the system. It's not against the policemen or
Right, exactly. There, once again, the system that created those laws, and part of it has to do with like the police unions and things too. There's certain laws and things that are set up that need to be looked at again and updated to accommodate what is happening now. And that discussion starts to trail away from that when we start just seeing people damaging property and looting and rioting,
Exactly.
we miss the point of what this is truly about. So I definitely hear what you're saying. It's very important that we, instead of looking at it, you're the enemy. No, you're the enemy. Like,
Yeah.
instead of pointing fingers, look at the system and the way that it's set up and see how the system can be revamped. To now, along with that, though, we've got to have cooperation from the people who have the power to actually revamp the system. Currently, when they brought it to the federal government about abolishing or lessening some of the immunity for officers who keep doing these things, like repeat offenders, they were told that's a non-starter. Like, we're not even going to consider that. And it's like, that's not good. We've got to work together. So that there, this is where unfortunately politics comes into play. It depends on who's in office and what their concerns are.
Yeah.
Their concerns are not social injustice, but rather it's more of a corporate, kind of capitalist concern, then that's the things that they're going to focus on. But you're right. We do need to do some reform just in general in the system and the way it works, because it should work for the people.
Yeah.
It should work for the people.
Exactly.
And it does not.
That's crazy.
Yep.
It's really
It is
messy,
crazy.
because
Yeah, it's messy. It is. I hear things all day, every day, and I just go, wow. What can you say? I just try to listen to people and give them an ear right now, because, all of these things bring up so many different emotions. And, I tend, like I said, I tend to find for the older ones, and by older, I mean like the baby boomers, are dealing with a lot of panic and anxiety because they just, to them, it feels like the world is falling apart. But I will offer this, and I said this to someone else, a couple other people actually, about what we see happening in the world. And I likened it to a great transition or shift. And the way that I used the parallel to describe that was, when you're refining something by fire, what's happening? When you're going to tear down an old dilapidated structure and put a new one there that's safer and better use, what does that look like? So in that process of basically removing the old situation that's not working, it can feel like a big fire that's out of control. It can feel like a huge demolition, and it can be very uncomfortable. But when you have a whole system that's got layers, of structure, there's definitely has to be some demolition work to remove that, to put something new in its place.
Yes.
So there's definitely a great transition and shift happening. And our part of it, and is remembering, for one thing, that we are spirit having a human experience. That's the first thing. So you can't mess this up. You can't lose. This is what you're here to experience. And the second thing is knowing that this is just part of the process to continue on to the next thing. That's what this existence is change. And once you understand that, it's never going to be steady. That's never going to happen. It's always going to be changing. Once you understand that, it takes some of the fear and the anxiety out. So that way you understand what it is that you're here to experience and to learn from those experiences.
Exactly.
So I just keep trying to share that with people.
Yeah, the work you've been doing is very important. Like,
Thank you.
yeah, keep doing, and I wish more people doing something like that, because especially in this time, because it's been hard. No jobs, no food, no money. You know,
Yes.
and people need to really get like in a or trying to find a balance. And the work you've been doing is really important, because you couldn't find the balance if you're not look at inside, like with your mind and your body and your soul, your spirit. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so important.
Oh, thank you, Binho. It's always so good talking with you
Oh,
and
thank you.
just getting a little snapshot into what's happening in your world and what's happening in Brazil too, you know. And we're
Yeah,
all connected.
sure.
So it's very important. I think about also what's happening in Hong Kong right now. I'm sure you probably heard about that. And we can do another discussion on just some of the world events going on. We'll plan
Yeah.
another one and just kind of chat about that. But thank you so much for being with us today and talking with us and sharing. I really appreciate you being here. And
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And sorry, sometimes
yeah.
my English is a little bit rusty, but
My English was rusty today. I couldn't think of anything. I could not think of a word, or it come to me like 5 minutes later. No worries. We definitely got the heartfelt intention of what you were offering today. And just thank you for sharing that with the listeners. And keep us posted too on any virtual MIG projects or anything that you're
yeah,
doing. Let us know.
sure. Yeah, I'm gonna send some music, some productions that I've been working on, and I'm gonna share with
Nice.
you and
Good.
enjoy.
Good. I will. I will. I've been peeping some of the stuff on social media. The one where the young lady was singing. Wow. She was amazing. I forget her name. It was a song you were playing. And there's a young lady kind of with curly hair that was singing. Very deep, soulful voice she was singing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Her name is Aniria. Aniria
Oh
is
my
her
God. She
name.
was amazing.
She's amazing. She's so good.
She's amazing. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. So yeah, if you could share with us that video, that would be great because I would love to post that and let people see you were jamming in the background. I was like, okay, go Vina.
So cool. So I'm glad you like
It
it.
was great. Yeah, yeah. And I still want to do a song with you. We need to send some things, do a collabo so I can do some vocals for you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I think
literally as soon as
yeah,
possible.
I think I have something for you. Yeah, because
Wonderful.
I've been producing a lot of collab projects. I mean, I've been collaborating with a lot of friends because they are all at home right now, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
a lot of people. Okay, let's do something, and I'm doing a lot of things. It's a good thing because my mind's still working, and yeah,
Nice.
I'm gonna find some song and you can record the voice. It's gonna be
Oh, that'd be
so nice. It's
great.
gonna be awesome.
Okay, I can't wait. Well, okay, guys, so stay tuned for that. It's gonna be the new collabo.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Yes, let's do it. Well,
Awesome.
beautiful. Thank you for being here with us on Coaching for
Thank
Life. Guys, ladies, gentlemen, we will be back with another video here soon. I'm trying to post more regularly. I'm going to place this on my Facebook as well as my YouTube channel. Wherever you are, love and light to you. And just remember that we are in a transition. Remember to connect with your higher self and to do self-care. Work on those basic things for the body, health and wellness. Eat a good diet, get plenty of rest, drink water, you know, do those basic self-care things that I always talk about. And I'll be looking forward to being with you next time. Peace.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.